Welcome to Consequence Gaming. The choices you make affect the world around you, like your game purchases. That's why we take the initiative to see the consequences of these games being in the video game market. Wasteland 2 is an RPG by inXile Entertainment. The game was funded through Kickstarter by the guy who created Wasteland 1, and I haven't even heard of the game until now. It takes its cues from the older Fallout games, as well as its predecessor from 1988, almost 2 decades between the two games. I've only had one playthrough of Fallout 1, and I haven't even touched Fallout 2 yet. My exposure to these games is very limited. Maybe I'll miss some things, maybe I won't. So let's take a look. You start the game by customizing your team of 4 rangers, skills, attributes, and of course, their looks. You can also use preset characters if you're not into customization and just want to get into the game quick. Tons of options are available, so pick your medicine. In general, each of your characters should specialize in the handful of skills that are unique to them. Overlapping skills are a waste of attribute points, but I eventually give everyone a rank in field medic and surgeon so that everyone is able to heal each other, and I do have a specialized medic to make the most out of my healing items. Going into the game itself, it's played from a top-down perspective in a 3D environment, so you can rotate the camera any which way you want, and you control the camera using WASD. You'll also have one primary mission that continues the story, but you'll be given a lot of side missions along the way. They're very clear on what you need to do and where you need to go to do it, but the order in which they're done is something you really have to think about. There are consequences for your actions, both good and bad. Very early in the game, you have 2 simultaneous emergencies you have to deal with. In my playthrough, I helped out High Pool and fixed their water supply before heading to the Ag Center. By then, the entire place was overrun. In hindsight, I think it's possible to save both locations, but then you'd be half-assing it and the infrastructure for both of them would be destroyed. That's my theory anyway. I don't know if that's true or not. But you still have to make these decisions, and while you may be progressing in one mission, you might be failing another. Now, the combat is really fun. Before it begins, you can position everyone and even take the first shot, but when the combat starts, it becomes turn-based and you're limited by the action points and the positioning on the turn queue. There is a cover system, and it's very simple. You move near a wall, and you get an evasion bonus in one direction. I noticed that having the best weapons is much more important than mastery of these weapons. Just have at least one rank in the particular weapon set so you have sufficient accuracy and you'll do well with it. Positioning and line of sight are still key, but pooling your money to get that one expensive weapon can do wonders for you, at least from my experience in the first few hours. One thing I would like to touch on is the user interface. The UI can make or break these types of games, and I really like how the game presents the information to me and what I can or cannot do in the world, especially during combat. You have 2 sets of outlines, how far you can move and how far you can move and still attack. It may not seem like much, but I get tired of counting tiles to see if I can move and attack in the same turn, and here the game shows me everything I need to know, so the combat ends up being very quick despite being turn-based. This is the kind of UI I like, one that makes the game easier to read and understand, but doesn't hold your hand or play the game for you. The game will tell you where to go, but there are no specific objective markers pointing out exactly where to go or who to talk to. You still have to explore the place and find them yourself. It's basically the old school gameplay of the Fallout games with a nicer UI and 3D graphics. I do like having a team so I can flank and outmaneuver the enemies. You could do this in the Fallout games, but it was very limited. I'm not aware of how long the game is. I'm 10 hours in, and I'm still trying to get the 3rd tower online. I would guess it's a pretty big game, and a very replayable game. My only complaint so far is the lack of formations. I cannot set the positions of team members when I'm moving, so when I begin combat unexpectedly, everyone is clumped up in a ball and I have to waste my first few turns moving everyone into firing positions. It's a bit annoying, but aside from that, I have no problems here. Perhaps this will change as I play more of the game, or perhaps my lack of experience with the Fallout games makes it difficult to draw any comparisons. Of course, first impressions are lasting impressions, and this carries on into the analysis of the game. The first few weeks are reviews and let's plays, as usual. The Let's Plays in particular will be much more diverse because everyone's team will be different and the choices they make will show you different outcomes in the story, so I think there will be a lot more people doing these here than for other games. The developers seem to have a positive relationship with the community. I think it's safe to say the exposure for Wasteland 2 will be pretty good. No drama or controversies, just some good discussion about a good game. In a few months, I think this game will still be on the back of everyone's minds. Just look at how people still discuss the Fallout games. It's these open world games with multiple decisions and consequences that really stand out from the crowd, and I think Wasteland 2 is no exception. The game just has to be good enough, and I think it's proved itself to be just that. I don't think the game will have any DLC. They say you can get the Red Boots DLC for $50, but for those who don't know, this is a joke from their Kickstarter trailer, so there's no DLC, and I really don't think they'll be selling any or adding any new content. The dev team is already moving on to their next game, which is Torment: Tides of Numenera. They've been very good about responding to feedback and listening to the fans throughout the whole development process. They'll fix any bugs that appear, so I think we'll be seeing overall improvements to the game in the long run. How much improvement? It's hard to tell. Wasteland 2 modernizes the older RPGs in a good way. Old school gameplay, new school tech. And I really like this because many of the older games are really good games, but they suffer from being old, if that makes sense. Lower resolutions means less information on the screen, and older UIs are very cumbersome to work with, and they just turn you off from the game. I looked at the screenshots for Wasteland 1, and I have no interest in playing that. As for Wasteland 2, I'm really enjoying it. You can get the game for $40, and I think it's worth it. If it's too steep for you, wait for a sale. The game isn't going anywhere, and you should be able to enjoy it whether it's now or a year from now, and by then, any problems or bugs in the game that I've missed will be fixed by then, and I'll talk about that in the follow-up. Thanks for watching.